All right, Patrick,
We're on.
we're on. Welcome back.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hello, everybody out there.
So, this is a very different Patrick
Hope so.
than the one who's been here 3 times before. Since the last time you were here, our last video, you checked yourself into a rehab right after.
That's right.
And how's that been?
So I've been clean since then. So that was like right around a month ago. So I'm clean now. I'll say this, and this feeling came immediately upon us agreeing to do this last week. Like doing this and being Captain Honest, like I've been in the past, is a whole different story. Clean versus high on crack. Like there's nervousness and fear at a much higher level right now.
So that honesty that you showed in those other talks was from your...
Well, no, my goal is to be just as honest now, because I do believe, and actually I believe even more from the experience of doing this, that there's power in that, and that somewhere in that lies the power to finally overcome this thing. So
I'm convinced of that.
Yeah, it's there's so much. Oh gosh, now I'm realizing there's so much we could talk about when it comes to that. When it comes to what there is to overcome this thing, and how I kind of just stumbled in here accidentally. It would appear, but I don't believe that. And decided that first time to just go for it in a crack haze. So there's a higher. I think it takes more courage right now. More, that thing that's always there when I'm clean across. Definitely the last several years of my life, of trying to present an image of someone better than I think I am, right? Like the imposter. So I want to sound good, want to say the right things, want to make sure to leave out the things that I think would be like embarrassing things. Mm-hmm. And I've already said all those embarrassing things on the last few videos. If anyone hasn't watched those, they could just go back and watch those. Goodness. So anyway, there's that. Turns out a lot of people watch your channel. I discovered like most of my friends. Like I have awesome friends. I have so many people that love me. It's like almost seems unfair, Last night I was with like my inner circle of friends, like with the people that I would hang out with the most over these last couple of years, over at my buddy's house, and we were talking about this. We were talking about life, talking about some of the things I went through, and I'm not gonna mention anybody's name, but those people are so awesome and so dear to me, and they treat me as though like nothing ever happened. That's the thing that's like, and I met everybody, all of them through the 12-step, through Narcotics Anonymous, and that sort of love and friendship. It's remarkable. It helps me not feel the depression that I am experiencing, So, how about I recap, like what happened since the last video?
Sure. That'd be great.
So I remember the last video. I think you drove me to my apartment after, maybe 3 or 4 hours after getting mugged over here, And then, so I didn't stop using for like at least another week after that. And I did some awful things in that. I did some hurtful things to people, and I'm going to tell you about those right here. As soon as I got home, right in that next day or two, my mom came. My mom's the other one I should mention. I've spent the last 3 days with her, and she's an absolute angel. I don't deserve it. It's funny. Like we like sometimes it seems like we get what we need, although maybe not. Like maybe a lot of people not. It seems like for some reason I've always had what I've needed, no matter if I'm earning it myself or if I don't have that ability. And I was actually joking with my mom, because one thing that my brother and I have yet to provide her with, which she would want, are grandchildren, for various reasons. And I joked with her, I think yesterday, that, well, at least we're not giving you grandchildren, but we are giving you, well, I at least am giving you, a life that needs a parent for 50 years instead of the usual 20. She laughed and also had watery eyes over that. But she came over to my apartment to help me, because it was becoming clear that I was gonna have to move out of that apartment. and we were going to try to go to Impact. I think we talked about that
yes, we did.
At length on that day. And to get into that place, I was told that the way to do that is to call every day, you know. And so I was just in a total depression, like not wanting to move, and you know, coming down off of that experience with the drugs and doing very little. You know, like I should have done way more. I was letting my mom do a lot. Like, Mom cleaned my whole apartment, started like sort of organizing it, getting boxes, you know, getting ready to move out. And on the Sunday of the end of that week, it was going to be a U-Haul. We're going to come with my brother and my dad, and we're going to put the furniture and be done with that apartment. And so on the Saturday evening prior to that Sunday, you know, I'm sitting there, and I have a way to get money again, right? I have a way to get money again. I'll go into that after. And in my head, it was like, this is the last chance you have to get high, right? Getting high and the next crack hit was still the most important thing. And I was sitting there, like going through those days with my mom there, and I just felt awful, you know, like the only antidote is to get high. And so, you know, I told my mom I was going to the liquor store, you know, which was literally like the first time I left her, you know. She even asked me, like, can I take you? I'm like, no, let me go, you know. And I come down here, I get a lift, I come down to Skid Row, I get crack, and I go back home to her with crack. Because like, even though my mom is sacrificing her first driving from Arizona to come and help me, like, it's more important that I get high. That's what I consider to possibly the last chance I had to do it. You know, and before I got back over there, she knew. You know, like it's not like, oh, I wonder why it's taking so long. And so, you know, one of her things is like, she'll do anything for me, anything, no matter what it is, but not except be around me when I'm getting high. Like, she won't. And so she asked me, like, dump it, which I wasn't going to do that, so she took off, you know. And I proceeded to get high throughout the night of my last day in my apartment. And then I wasn't sure what was going to even happen now, you know. That was like a change of plans with, you know, there he goes. But they still did come with the U-Haul, and I had like probably the worst day of my life, you know, maybe, of going out of that place where I've always been trying to hide from all my neighbors, you know, like in the using times. In the clean times, I'm just like a normal neighbor. Try to hide, you know, I'm always afraid they're gonna know what I'm doing. And now we're moving out, and I'm high, and I'm scared, and my dad is there. It was awful. And so I'm basically like running away from that place, having not paid the rent, you know. And winding up at my brother's, and now it's like, okay, now you don't have an apartment or a car, you know, like, and I still had access to money. And I remember I was at my brother's thinking, like, there's only one thing, like you need crack more than you've ever needed it before at this point, with having to deal with all that. And so I lifted from there, you know, went to Pomona for one night, getting high, came home back to his place, took off again, and I was like sneaking away. I didn't have to even do that. I could, well, maybe with my parents, but like with my brother, I could just tell him, hey man, I know you probably don't agree, but I'm going to get high, and he wouldn't stop me. You know? But instead of doing that, I'm like, you know, check this out. I'll tell you, this is ridiculous. Instead of doing that normal thing, like, hey bro, he probably would have even helped me. Like instead of maybe, hey man, will you please just drop me off instead of doing a lift? I don't know, but instead of that, I'm in his garage, like smoking a cigarette, like wearing like pajama pants and slippers, and like he has his shoes in the garage. I get a pair of his shoes, and I go out to the lift, and I come down here in pajama pants, right? And check into a hotel down here, or I got kicked out of that hotel the next day. So here's another story. So now I'm back down here, like 6 days after that incident happened, right around the corner here. And people knew, you know, I was back, wearing pajama pants, smoking crack, like here again. And but I did have a hotel. So I had a hotel out of Skid Row, down Central, like ways down there. But I'll kind of have to come up here to score and everything. And so I was at that hotel. Let me tell you this story. Still calling Impact every day. Still like managing to make that call so that I could say I did, right? Like I never broke the streak. In all this that I'm doing, I'm squeezing in a call to them. and they're not getting back to me. They're checking your insurance, or whatever. It probably didn't matter, because if they would have said, okay, come on in, I wouldn't have. Not if I would still had a chance to keep getting high. But I was doing that. And I was at this hotel over here, and I've described how I am when I take a crack hit. And so, I did some creepy stuff, not like dangerous, but like in the morning, 6 a.m, I take a crack hit in that motel room and get all, sexed up and horny, and like fantasy world comes. And I go downstairs to like the worker girl that works at the motel, and like invite her to my room, basically, like if she wants to come up on her break or whatever. And she was cool about it, like no thanks, bro, like I don't take breaks, and I walk away. 5 minutes after that, in my room, wears off, and I'm just like mortified, like, oh my God, and so I call the hotel, knowing she'll answer, and she answers, and I apologize, I'm so sorry, that was out of line, I shouldn't have done that, please forgive me. And she was really cool about it, like, yeah, no problem, man, like, cool. So then, like, soon after that, like the maid who comes and cleans the rooms, and so I would maybe take a hit and like be attracted to her, but it was like I didn't really like know what to say to her, but just I was just around too much, So to speed up this part of the story, I get the room for another night, going back to that same girl, but 4 hours later, no problem. Yeah, she paid for the second night, whatever. I come down here for a few hours. Like, I didn't even go back up to my room. I went, paid for the next night, came here, did my thing. When I wind up back down there at like 2 o'clock, I finally get in touch with Impact. Like, there's a message on my phone, like, hey, call us back. Hey, call me back, whoever the guy was. And I call him back, and I'm on the phone with him. I'm literally on the phone with them when, like, knock on the door of my room, and it's like the owner of the place, like, telling me I have to leave immediately with like the 2 girls behind him. Like, you have to leave immediately. You're doing whatever to the staff, making her uncomfortable, And I'm telling him, like, hey, like, I'm on the phone, man. Like, you gotta wait till I'm off this call. Anyway, I wound up arguing with this guy. Like, okay, you want me to leave? Fine, just refund me the second day. I wasn't even here. Like, I was literally just got back half an hour ago. Nope, we're not refunding you the second day. And I wind up like downstairs, like where they have like their little side office. And I'm like, the nature of that argument was that he wouldn't let me say anything. Every time I start to talk, he yells. At one point, he has a baseball bat like up to my neck, that thing. We're calling the cops. He said, we're calling the cops, and you're gonna get arrested. Okay, fine, call the cops. I go back up to my room, and they've locked me out. So all my stuff's in there. I'm locked out, and so I've never done this in my life, and I was sort of proud of myself for succeeding on my first attempt, but I just threw the door, busted it open with my shoulder, and broke it. And
like a movie.
Kind of, yeah, like how cops would do it if they were trying to get in. I mean, I guess the door's just flimsy because it'd be like, it broke just the right amount, like not terribly broken, but open. And whatever, I told him, hey, you locked me out of there. No, that's not. Yeah, so the cops came, and I wasn't worried at all about the cops coming. I feel like I understand their approach to like users and stuff, and honesty. I even told him, the owner, like, hey man, I'm a drug addict. Otherwise, I wouldn't be at your motel. Like, I'm sure that's not a news flash to you or anyone else down here. And yeah, I'll admit, sometimes I get high and I act a little bit inappropriate. Like, I apologize to your worker here. She was fine with it. She got my second night payment, no problem. And so when the police came, it was like a guy and a girl in a patrol car, and like, so the guy wanted my story, and then the girl was talking to him. Like, I just told him all the truth. Like, I'm a drug addict. I'm here. This happened. He wants me to leave, but he's not giving me a refund. So the end result of that was, okay, he's going to give you a refund, but please leave. Yeah, no problem. Like, that's what I told him in the beginning. That would have been. So that happened. From there, I just ran out the clock the next couple of days until there was no money. Now here's another awful thing that me being high caused me to do.
What happened with Impact, though?
Oh, so at that moment, I wasn't gonna there was so much going on. There's so much going on. So basically, what Impact was telling me was, here, go to this other program. And I'm not sure exactly why, but I have a feeling it had to do with immediate help being necessary, because I told the guy on the phone exactly what I was doing and where I was, and he was like, oh, wow, like, well, that's refreshing to hear you be so honest, but like call this number. And so it was a different place. It was a place I could go to immediately. They offered to just tell me where you are right now, and we'll come pick you up, right? And so once everything kind of settled and I got back to looking at the phone and figuring that out, I wasn't going to call because I still had a chance to keep getting high. So basically, I called that guy like one day later, late at night. And I was at the end. I ran out of money that I was, basically I had a friend, and I think I mentioned it briefly in past interviews, really a dear friend, she's great, and excuse me. And she was basically like feeding me money as like almost like an advance on my tax return, which I had sent her the debit card for the tax return so she would have that when it came. So then in between my last time seeing you and my mom coming down, somewhere in those days, the tax return came and I still had access to it like without even having the card physically. And I literally spent it all, like drained it down to zero. They sort of referred me to another place, and it doesn't really matter now, but I'm pretty sure the reason was this other place could offer me immediate help. In fact, they told me, just tell us where you are, and we'll come to you right now, take you into a rehab immediately. And so I didn't do that for another day until I completely ran out of money. But at that point, did do that, and that offer was still available, and so I wound up in like a 30-ish day treatment program in the Valley, which wound up being a place to sleep and eat and not take drugs. Is basically the what was accomplished there. The way I was getting all this money, involved me basically robbing my friend, a girl that had she had been, feeding me money over time because she's nice and she loves me, and I asked her, and I had a tax return coming in the future, which I always thought was going to be way in the future of all this using, because this started in December, and then this time around they didn't even start doing taxes until like late February. So I had mailed her the debit card that tax return was going to, and then, before I was out of my apartment, I see on my phone, oh, your money's there, and I had a way of getting that money like around the back door without having the card, and I literally spent it all, so leaving her with nothing. Just one of the things. I went to that rehab center. They took my phone away for a week, which is common. Actually, that's usually it would be longer. It seemed like this place was a little bit easier going. And just like another example of how awesome my friends are to me. I told her the day I got my phone back. I told her, what I did, and she was basically like, you're fine. I love you. Like, I'm glad you're in rehab. Like, don't worry. We'll work it out. I don't want to pay her back, but that was I tell her that, and her response is like, I love you. Like, it's cool. Like, I get it. Yeah, she's awesome. So yeah, that's what happened. There was a moment, the last night of using was awful, but that's probably common. I'm realizing that I'm getting towards broke and I'm so far gone, and more and more people are starting to, text me like the link to this video last time, like, what's going on, man? People are calling me. I'm running out of money. I was in a place I really didn't feel comfortable with, a person I kind of didn't want to be around, but I was stuck there because we kept getting high, and I finally got out there and I was walking. So I had to walk, probably like a mile and a half to go one last place with like the last $60, but it was like more of a friendly environment, and crying. At one point I'm walking and I'm crying. And I was down there on Imperial, kind of like more west than normal. And there's a spot, I didn't even realize where I was going down Imperial, the street crosses the freeway. I didn't realize that was gonna happen when I was, and I'm crying. Somehow I started like bawling as I'm walking across the freeway, and I look up like, oh, there's a fence is just like not, I just boom, go over it, and fall down on the freeway, And normally I get to that state, I get that deep, and those sort of ideas will be there. It's almost like I don't want to call it voices, but it's like multiple. My brain, it's almost like my voice. It's almost like my brain having a conversation with itself, but two sides, and go do it, jump, go, almost like they talk about the disease of addiction, kind of like when you're clean, they'll tell you, come on, do it. You deserve it. Get high. And then as soon as you do it, you're a piece of shit. Like the same thing, like that. So I looked up there, but as I was looking up there, and as of that whole thing, I was processing the fact, like, oh, you're on a bridge. I knew I wouldn't do it. I even felt like my feet, like, you get heavier down onto the ground for whatever that is. So I continued on, and I wound up in that place. I didn't do much, I feel like my past times getting clean, which there have been.
You ended up in the rehab.
Yeah, so now I'm in rehab. So from end of February through, I got out 3 days ago. I feel like past times getting clean, which there's dozens. I've been more active, more like trying to do recovery, trying to do things to get the ball rolling again, striving. This time, not necessarily on purpose, but just whatever, like depressed, like a lot of laying on my bed, a lot of sleeping, a lot of watching TV, checking out, a lot of eating. So let's talk about, so then it's also the fact that I did these videos, right? And so, man, and there's the two sides of honesty, There's like kind of like the fear side, like what I would always have all my life was this fear of saying everything, especially the sexual stuff, especially those details, and then I stumbled in here and said all the details. I went from nobody knowing, or maybe a couple, 2-3 people, right? That's the people you trust the most, the people that are like willing to be honest with you about that stuff too. And I kind of skipped like in the middle part and went out to whoever wants to log on and watch it.
You thought you were just talking to me, but you're talking with.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I kind of, my mind knew what this was going to be. And then I especially knew ever since that first one came out, right? And when that first one first came out, this is way back. I still had a lot of cracks to smoke after that first one. I did have like a negative reaction, like, oh man, I'm done. I'm done. Because I've always had this, hide the bad shit, like imposter syndrome, present yourself. And having this experience, like, in a way, it's like there's like a freedom side of it, I've had a few people help me to have a different idea of it. Like this is what you need. This is going to cause people to love you even more, right? To know all this, right? To have this out there. Because you talked about it. I watched the third one yesterday. I hadn't seen it. I watched it for the first time. You talked about love being the thing, self-love, and then and for us addicts, choosing a fix instead of love. And I believe that. Choosing fear, and whatever's missing, like I would use the word perverted and disgusting and gross and those sort of adjectives to describe what I do and like how I am. And friends, like the one friend in particular that saw, it seems like certain people subscribe in my different friend circles, certain people subscribe to your channel. And they just subscribe to your channel, and then all of a sudden I'm on there, and then next thing you know, like everyone, it kind of goes from 1 to 50, and so on. But certain people like making it like it's okay, like you're not gross, like you're not even that much different.
No, I think you're all of us.
And I'm all my life kind of like subconsciously thinking like you're gross, you're different, hide it, right? So that's one thing that happened from this is. Especially with women, because it would be easier for me to tell the truth to a dude than to a woman, because I would think like women are the ones you're trying to impress, or that for whatever reason, I think that they would be the ones to find this really extra disgusting or what have you. And no, like, they don't, at least not all of them. And they're happy to see me being honest. And they tell me things like, you could love yourself. What if you just loved yourself and accepted that? Like, that stuff that I do, that's part of my addiction, right? That's just part of it. And it's not necessarily gross, I told, I was at that rehab, and probably the best thing, I think the reason I went there, I feel like everything happens for a reason. And there was one counselor that would come in 3 times a week, and she helped me. She was good. She got sober years ago, but kind of in a public way. Like I won't go into that, but and on our last group, the last group that I had with her and there was only like 3 or 4 other clients there. We watched my first video as like part of the group,
How was that?
Yeah, we watched one of her videos. This counselor, which was like a TED talk. She's stayed sober for years, and so and then we watched that, and it was a little bit like, and then we just watched it, and she wound up telling me right when it was over, like, you're gonna stay clean now because of this, because of that honesty, and like breaking through that barrier, even though it was like not the plan, it kind of happened by accident. That was her takeaway, and she cried and told me she loved me more, right? And then talked about like some stuff she went through that would be kind of like way out there on like the super honest edge of the scale. And then one of my colleagues, one of the other patients in there, this older dude, said, "Hey, can I say something?" And told something that he had never shared in his life. So like the spirit of honesty was there in that. Almost like they watched that and they're like, well, okay, let me do it too. So that was powerful.
I think your honesty makes you perhaps the most loved person on my channel, because you're just so incredibly honest and vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of an effort today, but it's the right way to be.
I think it makes you, the end result is the exact opposite of what you think. You think everyone is going to be horrified and hate you. Yeah. And it's the exact opposite. Right. Everyone relates to you and loves you.
Right. Yeah. And, like the great majority. And I have read the comments for I think most of them. Like, I haven't done that in a while. But when I was like home depressed in between getting high, especially the first video, I read a lot of the comments, and that's remarkable how many people, thank you all of you people that like want me to do good and feel for me. But like human nature, so maybe what do you think? Like 10% of them are negative, maybe, or some like small.
Well, there's always some percentage. I mean,
and I focus on those, right? Like,
it's human nature, though.
My instinct will be to focus on those, to pick those apart.
Yeah, I get lots of positive ones, but I remember all the negative ones.
To resist trying to correcting them where they're wrong and everything. And one thing I'll say about that the negative one, because I see myself in that. Like I could be the negative guy watching anything. Like, oh yeah, so great, but what about that? What about that? And one thing about the negative comments, it seemed to me, they're always so sure of themselves.
Yes.
Right? The negative comments are statements of like, this is absolutely the truth.
They state it as a fact.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course, how could you possibly know? And they don't. And that's when you know it's...
So if you're going to do a negative comment, try to use some nuance and don't pretend you know for sure. Just suggest that maybe I'm lying.
That's a great observation. So what's your plan from here?
Okay, so that's one thing that's different now versus any of the times in the past is that, so like as I've described over these times, like car's been gone.
Your job gone.
Turns out you're not supposed.
Do you still have the job?
I do still have the job.
That's incredible.
Apartment's gone. All the money's gone. So it was like
apartments, money, and cars are all replaceable.
What to do? Yeah, sure. I mean, it doesn't matter. That's one thing is like, okay, no matter how much money I make, if it's going to be zero, or like, let's call it what it is, negative 20 grand, whatever it is right now, every time, then it probably doesn't matter how much money I made before that.
Right.
That doesn't matter. But the job is still there. Basically, I've been on medical leave. They know what's going on. You
still have your teeth. You're still a handsome guy. Nobody's removed any fingers from you.
But it was like, what do you do now? You don't have that apartment to go back to. Like I can't really work without having a car to get there, having some setup. No money to start to move into a place. So we're looking at sober livings, places that the insurance would cover, like first month, stuff like that.
So I mean, where do you stand as an addict today? So you've been in this rehab for about a month, right? And you seem as sober as a judge right now.
Yep.
But is there a temptation to use again?
Not right now. That's something I could talk about that. So the last time that I had the obsession to use, it was, I can't remember exactly how many days I had been at the rehab, but I definitely had my phone again. So probably like 10 days in, roughly. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but some detail of what I saw on my phone made me think, oh, I can get money again. Something happened at my bank or something. And so I already went to one rehab and left before the third video. Now I'm laying there, I'm laying in bed, I'm thinking about it. Thinking about like all the steps that it would require. Pack your stuff, tell the staff guy, hey, I'm leaving, which whatever, they can't keep you there. Get a lift, go and come straight down here, boom. And I'm laying there, and I want to do it. And I'm laying there, and eventually, you know what happened that night? I made a couple friends that I've met in person, but they're viewers. And I made a couple friends, a couple that I've stayed in touch with.
Through the comments?
No, we got each other's info. So through the comments, but no, people find me on Facebook or Messenger.
Oh, I see, right, yeah.
And I was talking to one of them, nice person that just wants me to succeed, and I wound up texting with her, like sort of like accidentally at that moment. And all of a sudden, like an hour of that maybe went by, or some amount of time texting back and forth, and like I forgot that I wanted to go get high. And then from the next morning till now, I haven't thought about it. I haven't wanted to or schemed on how I could. And that's kind of normal for me. Like that's my pattern would be to get like this.
And what would trigger it?
Yeah, that's down the road. So triggering it would be like going back to work, getting back into like the hustle and bustle of everyday life, feeling lonely perhaps, going and visiting prostitutes clean, and then feeling shame over that, kind of like that whole way of thinking of myself, like the whole perverted, disgusting stuff. Maybe doing that 3 or 4 times, but in a real sort of addict.
Have you ever had a girlfriend?
Yeah, I've had girlfriends, a few over the years.
I would think that would keep you clean, right?
Yeah, that's been discussed over time here and there as one of the strategies, like get a girlfriend. Like,
I mean, it seems like
it would help. Like that would make me feel more, like times when I've had a girlfriend, I felt better about myself.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so that's a thing. And and then eventually, though, realizing that the prostitute behavior just isn't fulfilling, and then really what I want is crack. One of my old sponsors would describe for me, not for everybody, but for me, prostitute walking down a sidewalk, that's a crack pipe walking down a sidewalk, is how he would describe it. So one thing that happened, when I got my phone back at the rehab, I turn it on, there's a long email, right, from a dear friend of mine that I lived with for a year in Puerto Rico, right? And this guy is like the Puerto Rican version of me, right? This guy's hilarious and smart. I love this guy, and he's describing in this email and he lived in Florida, how he just went through, he relapsed last year for the first time in like 8 years, I think, first time in a while. Whatever stories I told you, 10 times heavier. He had a lot of money to blow through and just blew it up. Like lost his business, lost his marriage, lost everything, and was gonna kill himself, right? And then decided at the last minute to go back to Teen Challenge, like the program where we were, the program that I worked for, and then back in Massachusetts. And so he'd been there 5 months, and he saw my video, right? So that's really what generated this email. He sees the video, right? And so that tells him how I'm doing, And he's basically like, come here, hang out with me. Let's do this. Let's recover together. Let's get strong again. And I love this guy, and I want to finally call him. And at first, when I saw that, that goes against one of the things I've been trying to do these last 5-6 years, which is like cling to this independent life, like this like regular job, apartment, being like a regular person. And then I wound up calling and talking to my boss, You know, like my boss, the guy that runs the place where I work is a special guy, and I have a great relationship with him, and I totally trust his advice and his judgment. He's like a father figure to me, and I told him, I asked him like for help making the decision. You know, do I stay, try to find a spot, come back to work, or, you know, my friend the Puerto Rican friend, was the first one that pitched the idea to me of like asking for a leave of absence from work and going there. That would be a 6-month program in Massachusetts. So I presented that to my boss, like asked him what he thought, and he immediately was like, I think the 6-month sounds good. You know, I'll do whatever I can to support you on that. You know, who knows if the leave of absence will be approved. I already turned in requests for that. And so I made that decision to do that, to like fly to Massachusetts, go into that place. As soon as I made that, and it was like sort of surreal that day, you know, as soon as I talked to my boss, and like that was like the final straw to make the decision. And that day it was almost like I was outside of my body, watching myself do this thing.
Is it difficult for you to make that? Because you seem fine now, and my temptation, if I were in your shoes, would be like, no, I'm good.
Right.
I'm good.
That's what I've always done.
Leave me alone.
Because I do feel good. You know, like I probably could go to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
And be
fine. I would just go back to work and forget it.
I've always done that. I've always done that. And that would be better. You know, start making money, to start digging out this hole.
Yeah.
But that's all the material stuff. And feel like that sort of pride, or, you know, like whatever it is that makes me feel bad about myself. As an addict, or even as a human, I think I'll try to get anything from anywhere to make me feel better. And so it's my performance at work, it's my relationship with coworkers, it's my income, you know. And right now it's nothing. I don't know. I don't really feel it at this moment. You know, I think like another part of addiction is self-centeredness, and so here I am talking about myself. So this is part of me loves this. You know, my favorite thing to do is like I'm always thinking about myself and talking about myself.
You're just as lovable in this state to me as you would be if you had a car and a job and an apartment and a great.
Thank you for that, but that's true, because otherwise it wouldn't be love. If it depended on having a car and all that, it would be some other thing, not love. Love is something
I think you're a great guy, as do many other people.
Yeah, but it still remains true that I'm like technically homeless, you know, penniless, you know, all those. That is my status right now, as far as, you know, describe the.
Well, I'm going to take care of you, as I always do after we're done here.
Sure.
You won't. There's no chance of you using that on anything back.
We'll talk. I'll show you. No, not at all. My dear friend that brought me down here will help with that if there was anything on that end. So I came down here with another.
I would hate that.
With a clean addict in recovery. So that's good. But there was an immediate like sort of depression that set in right away after making that decision, and I felt like it was like I was grieving. That I finally had to let go of clinging to this life, like clinging to like these material things and being this guy, you know, being this person, this successful person that I would always try to portray myself as. And that's probably healthy, you know. That's, you know, they talk about like surrender and letting go, and like you know, when they talk about like the third step in the program of like turning your will and life over to the care of God, you know, however you see God. Someone described that back in the day as jumping off a cliff. You know, it's like you're jumping off a cliff, just trusting that something's gonna catch you, instead of like trying to build a skyscraper at the top of the cliff. I'm jumping off. So I do feel like I went through a little bit of a grieving process, and it is still true that I would, you know, like today. Hopefully, like after this, hopefully it's not too long before I'm like laying down, vegging out, watching TV again. Like I'm watching Billions right now, which is fantastic. So I was gonna go tomorrow. I had the flight booked for a red eye tomorrow night. But one thing I have to do, and I've mentioned this, I think I've mentioned it in passing, but I had cancer. I had melanoma twice in my life already. It was on my head. I have you can see this on my head, and then 2.5 years later, in 2016, it came back here in my lymph nodes. There's 2 lumps, there's 2 cancer tumors of melanoma in my lymph nodes. And so I had to get surgery to get them out. Going through that while I worked at this job probably helped me do a few extra relapses and come back without saying anything, because I was getting cancer treatment after I had the tumor's taken off. I did 3 years of infusions at the City of Hope to try to reduce the chances of it coming back. And I have to continuously go and get scanned, get checked. It was every 3 months. Now it's every 6 months. And so I got in there a couple days ago because I wanted to get in there before I went. Like before I went to Massachusetts and before my insurance cuts off, because my insurance is also going to cut off due to this decision. And the scans found 2 things, something in my neck and something in my liver. And that's never, there was one time like a couple of years ago we weren't sure and I had to do a biopsy, but that one was clean. So this is only the second time that there's ever been anything that requires anything extra. And so, especially the one in my neck, they would want to, at least the least amount of time they would want me to wait would be 6 weeks to look again, see if it grew, because basically these things are growing since the last time, beyond a threshold of worry. Yeah, so because of what's going on, I'm doing the biopsy immediately, right? So I'm doing a biopsy on Monday. So that threw everything sort of into. So I'm having a biopsy on that Monday, wait for the results to come back, and hopefully it's negative, and then I go. But that's what's going on. That's the latest. I just found that out on Monday.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know.
I wish you the best with that. That's a little scary.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It's interesting. People always ask me, "How'd you take the news?" And my boss, my former direct supervisor, who's retired now, would always marvel at how my attitude was about the cancer, because it's the same as it is now. Like, I'm not worried, it's like whatever. And I feel like the reason I'm like that is because of the addiction. Like, this addiction thing is so gnarly and so overwhelming that any other thing is like nothing in comparison. Like for the cancer thing, I gotta go get a COVID test on Sunday and I gotta go to get a biopsy on Monday. So I basically have to just physically go to a place and say, here I am, and lay on the table. And that's so easy.
I think I heard Joe Rogan say something about MMA fighters, how nothing upsets them.
Yeah.
Like when people like us lose our cell phones, we get all upset and it ruins our day.
Yeah.
These guys, nothing upsets them because they're facing death like on a daily basis, basically.
Things definitely upset me, like that's part of like the self-centeredness. Like I get angry and be immature and throw a tantrum. Like I've noticed that a couple times lately, but nothing like really scares me or worries me, like for whatever reason, like having this be positive and having to do whatever happens after that, or the risk of dying that would come with that, doesn't scare me.
Well, listening to what you just told me, I think you've gone from what most viewers who've watched your other videos would be, oh my God, this guy's so much worse off than all of us. And I think where you're going to end up is so much better off than all of us. So much healthier and stronger.
That would be awesome, like having this finally be a win, like a long-term win down the road. I mean, I don't even know what that would look like.
I could totally see it.
But people do say, it's almost like a cliche, but I totally believe in it. Like this disease, this addiction disease, and I know some people don't think it's a disease, and who knows, but like legally, it's a disease. American Medical Association.
It's definitely a thing.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the only disease that, like, if you recover from it, it leaves you off better than if you had never had it at all, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I get through this, I could be, or any of us, I'm like speaking for any of us that are addicts, we get through it, we wind up on the other end better than if we had just never been an addict in the first place, because of the growth and sort of like the humility and all that, the helping others part, all that comes along with recovering. So I don't know.
I buy that 100%.
Yeah. Any extra questions? I think that might be it, man.
No, that's great. You're incredible. I'm so happy
Appreciate
we met.
you, Mark.
I'm so happy we met.
Yeah, me too.
And I see great things for you. Yeah. I'm worried about the cancer.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried about everything else. I think you're
the opposite of me. So between the two of us, you're worried about the cancer, and I'm worried about everything else.
No, I think you're on the right track.
We're a good team.
I feel really good about everything. But I'm glad you're taking care of them.
Yeah. So I'll let you know that the outcome on that.
Excellent. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to seeing where you're at in 6 months or wherever.
Sure. Me too.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Patrick. Oh, it's so nice to talk to this Patrick.
I know, right? I got